industry-leading genetics, extensive local breeding and testing, top-performing products. Developed specifically for your field. Visit pioneer.com/what's next to learn more.
It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio.
And welcome to RealAg Radio here on this Thursday, December 12th. I am your host for the day, Lyndsey Smith. And yes, being Thursday, you know what that means. It is the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. On today's show, we're going to stop at two different farms in Ontario. We are going to head to Western Manitoba, and then we'll stop off in Fairlight, Saskatchewan to wrap up our tour. And then we'll head back to Manitoba to hear from Derwyn Hammond. He's the Western Manitoba rep for Pioneer Seeds Canada. Got lots to chat with him as he wraps up some of the evaluations of the new products, new varieties, new hybrids that the company evaluates every year. So some really cool stuff to unpack in that last segment. So stick around for that. As always, of course, the Farmer Rapid Fire, a lot of fun to go hopping across the provinces, see what everybody is up to, see what's keeping them busy. This week's question is a really important one. And so I wanted to bring it up here because I want to get your feedback as well. I think this is just such an important topic. And we've actually got our new poll up at RealAgriculture.com where you can weigh in as well. So head on over there, RealAgriculture.com. If you scroll down our main page, you'll notice there we've got a poll and we try to refresh it every week. And this week we are asking, actually what I ask all the farmers today. So spoiler alert, here's what I asked them. I asked them how they manage stress and the positive ways that they try to manage their stress. We know that there are certainly perhaps less positive ways. One of my favorites is screaming at loved ones, not positive. So what are the ways, of course, that we can manage our stress before we get to that point? This is, of course, an incredibly important aspect of working in a very high stress, high stakes field, which is agriculture. That is just how it goes. So some of the options I put on the poll, and I did leave it open. You can fill in another if I didn't manage to pick your particular positive stress reliever. But things like, of course, perhaps exercise, change of scenery, planning a vacation, journaling, writing lists, to-do lists, all of those things. There's plenty to choose from. I've left it open. You can choose a couple, and you can, of course, add yours as well. So head on over there. Would love to get your feedback. If, of course, you have other things to add to that conversation, perhaps you found something that works really well for you, or perhaps this is a real struggle for you and are glad that there's some attention being paid to it, you can give me a call, 855-776-6147. That's our RealAg listener line. You can leave a message and we'll get back in touch, or you can zip me an email directly, lsmith@realagriculture.com. Let me know your thoughts, of course, on that or anything you hear on the show. We love to get your feedback across the board. Or you can find me, of course, across social media at RealLoudLyndsey. I'm on Blue Sky as well as Twitter or X, as is, of course, Real Agriculture. And so please check that out. We've got a YouTube channel that you should subscribe to because we've got all sorts of great videos that don't always get mentioned here on the radio show. So if you want to check out some of the really cool stuff we do, like the shop series, I did want to send out a shout out to the shop series. My friend and yours, Steve Terpstra, is on the latest episode of the shop series. You get a tour of his Cadillac farm shop over there in Listowel or near Atwood, Ontario. It is truly remarkable, and what him and Diane are doing there is pretty cool. So go check that out as well. That's on YouTube. It is RealAg Shops. Give that a search and you'll find it, no problem. Okay, it's time to dig in to the Farmer Rapid Fire, and we are going to start in Cobourg, Ontario. All right, we head now to near Cobourg, Ontario. I've got Mark Burnham on the line. Mark, how are you?
Good. How are you, Lyndsey?
I'm doing well. How is Cobourg on this beautiful gray day?
We're mild and soggy.
Yes, sounds about right. Now, is that a problem, or is everything kind of tidied up so far?
We're not quite buttoned up. We have one field left of corn to harvest, but our bins are full. We're just waiting on some nicer weather to turn the dryer back on to empty out the wet bins to make room for the corn that's still standing. So, yeah.
Is that a pretty typical dance, or did something sort of catch? Was it just that everything was ready at the same time, or is this sort of par for the course?
This is actually early for us typically. We've tended to leave harvest a little later. Over the last few years, we've gotten away with it. We've never been in much of a rush to get done, but we're expecting a new baby in 2.5 weeks, so I wanted to get things done before then. So
yeah, it's called nesting.
Yeah.
Everybody's nesting looks different. Some people, they need to get harvest done. Other people need to file their taxes. Some people need to make 100 truffles. Everybody's different.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, congrats. That is 2.5 weeks. That means you could ostensibly have a Christmas baby. Is that in the cards here?
Yeah, the due date's the 29th, but my wife's feeling like it might be a bit earlier. So
that may also just be wishful thinking. So there is also that. Yeah, it could be. Well, that is pretty cool. That's awesome. So yes, lots to get done before you can sort of settle in and enjoy that time. Good time of year. Everybody's sort of hunkered down for the year. Now, Cobourg, for those sort of who don't know, so you're east of Toronto, not the far east like I am. But what kind of growing season did you have? Did you get that, really hard start but a great finish, or how did it go for you?
I wouldn't say we had anything that was hard. The spring was a touch late, but then we had a fantastic stretch to get everything in. I can't remember I think we maybe got a little bit wet after planting, but not significant. And then summer was actually maybe touch on the dry side, but I didn't see much or any corn curling, so it never really suffered. And then like everything finished very, very strong. Wheat, if it wasn't record, it was second best. Corn, if it wasn't record, it was second best. And our beans were record, basically. So I can't complain.
No, that sounds really good. Now, Wheat Pete was saying that while we did not achieve record acres of wheat in the province this fall, that numbers are strong. Did you put in extra wheat this year, or are you on a pretty set rotation, or what does that look like on your farm?
We actually consciously pulled back a little bit. The last 5 or 10 years, we've kind of been going around the 400 acre mark, and we're down to about 350, just trying to, manage the slightly lower income in potentially a low market value year. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
So, and how do you make the call of where you pull back? Is it like certain fields, you put it on your better fields for wheat, or just ones that seem to do better in a tighter rotation? How do you make the call of where you pull it out?
A little bit of both. We do have ground that is not suitable for wheat production, some that's a bit questionable. So, and then some of it was when was the last time it had wheat, I guess.
Right.
So we're trying to just balance it out. Like if there's a marginal field that hasn't had it in 5 years, we'll throw it back on that field. But it also depends on how the harvest went, which fields went at which time. So
yeah, it's true.
There's a bit of everything.
Yeah. Well, and that's, for many, as much as the open fall was beautiful, it was sort of necessary in that it's not like harvest was going to be coming in early otherwise. So a lot of beans went in late. And if your beans go in late, sometimes they're late coming off too. And it's hard to get the wheat in when you want it if there's still a crop standing. So
100%.
Yeah, that's what happens. All right. My question of the week, which maybe for you is a little different, but given the next 3 weeks in your household, but what do you do for stress? What are the positive ways? Because we know there are some negative ones. What are the positive ways you manage stress?
Try to get off the farm a little bit. Whether it just be get off the farm, get out of the county, go play some sports. There's some of that. But yeah, that's basically just get off the farm and distract myself, I guess.
Yeah.
The other thing was I have a couple friends that both farmers that we are on basically speed dial with each other, and whenever we're sitting around doing nothing or have a question, we just kind of call each other up and talk to each other, vent, or whatever we need to do. So
yeah, that's pretty cool. When you say go play sports, is that like mini golf or is that hockey? What do you go play?
Right now it's hockey. In the summer, I used to play a bunch of stuff, but it's kind of random in the summer at this point. So yeah, a little bit of golf, but I'd like to get back into something more scheduled, but that's hard to do with a young family. So.
It very much is, absolutely. But yeah, those connections I'd say are pretty darn important when you have somebody that's around and understands the decisions you have to make on the everyday. It's kind of nice to have somebody to bounce things off of, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, awesome.
Especially when they're not related to.
Though we love our families. We'll just put it out there. But yeah, isn't that nice? Nice to have some fresh, non-judgy perspective. That's a nice part of it.
Or extra judgy, one or the other.
Yeah. But loving judgy. It's fine. It's totally cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, Mark. Well, good luck in the coming weeks. That's an eventful one, so I hope all goes well. And that you manage to get your nesting done, get your harvest done before that baby arrives.
Yes, I will try in the next week or so.
All right. Okay. Take care. All right. We're going to leave it there. We're going to hop to Schomberg, Ontario next. I've got to figure out where that is, quite honestly. But we're going to take a break from the Farmer Rapid Fire here, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. And we'll be back with more right after this.
We're at the Farm Management Canada meeting, AgX. Joining us right now is Stuart Person with MMP, board member at Farm Management Canada. What are some of the cool things that Farm Management Canada does?
So we do some educational work around financial literacy, succession planning, risk management planning as well. A lot of our role is to promoting the concept of, for example, risk management planning. Getting out and explaining to people the importance of risk management planning and what it can do for you and what are all the benefits to doing that. In those sessions, we're not going to do a risk management plan for you because every farm in Canada, their risk management plan is going to look something different. Our role is more on promoting the concepts and getting people into that mindset that this is important and I should be doing this. Risk management is really putting a plan in place to say, how do I deal with all these things that I can't control? Producers who do a really good job of business planning and have a really good risk management plan in place, they understand that and they realize they have a good backstop in place. Their confidence level is a lot higher in terms of making investment decisions.
Here's what Wheat Pete's word on RealAgriculture.com is all about in under 30 seconds.
It's wheat time. I love wheat time. I love wheat. Get that sulfur on. Get that seeding rate right. Get that nitrogen on your wheat right. Get that protein. Know your variety. Know when you need to put fungicides on. Pick your product. Pick your rate. Do the right job. Get this wheat crop right. Have a nice day. Grow amazing wheat.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio, Channel 147, Sirius XM. It is Thursday, December 12th, if you can believe it, which means, of course, time for the Farmer Rapid Fire with Pioneer Seeds Canada. We jump now to near Schomberg, Ontario, which I don't know where that is. So, Luke, you're going to have to tell me. And we're talking to Luke Barron. Luke, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Where is Schomberg?
It's just about 20 minutes north of Toronto, right in between Toronto and Barrie.
So are you in the area that got absolutely walloped with snow, or were you further south enough?
Yeah, we were just far enough south that we missed it. Yeah.
I have friends who are still digging out for that. So
I bet. Yeah, we still got a bit, but nothing nothing serious.
All right. Okay. So tell me about your farm there at Schomberg, north of Toronto. What do you farm? What's the setup like?
Oh, just cash cropping and feed cattle. We have a feedlot and do some custom work and custom spraying, and that's mostly just me and my dad, and my wife helps when she's not at her off-farm job, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
It sounds busy enough. Yeah. Okay. So grain, you got cash crop, you got a feedlot, custom work. And spraying. Yeah, that's enough to stay busy. So which of those this year was the most challenging?
Definitely the cash cropping was in the spring to get everything planted. We had a real wet spring, and it seemed like every time we got the planter rolling and looked like we were going to have a good go, it rained the next day. So it was pretty tough to get everything in, and then to get it all sprayed too is kind of an issue, but yeah, we got it all done eventually.
Yeah, this was the year where the weed control was a lot of like catch-up weed control. It didn't get done in necessarily the most timely manner.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Especially if you were trying to pre-emerge anything, it didn't go to plan. That's for sure.
Now, if we had just planted everything the first week of April, it would have been fine, right? Just
yeah.
We almost could have. Yeah, but we did not, for good reasons. Now, feedlot, there's some great prices in the cattle industry, but of course, there's always somebody who's winning a lot and someone who's not winning so much. How has the feedlot gone this year with the escalating prices?
It's been pretty good, yeah. I can't complain. The price of stockers has definitely gone up, but the fat market seems to keep going up with it. So far, there's still a profit if you can watch what you're doing carefully, like everything in farming, I guess. But yeah, so far I have no complaints. We're actually going to ship some tomorrow to Cargill and Guelph, and yeah, the price is pretty good, and the price has gone up since we booked this load, but that's just the way it goes, I guess.
Yeah. If only. Now, so is that plant a normal one for you? So were you impacted by the strike earlier, where that plant wasn't taking, or is that just one of your options?
Yeah, no, that's pretty much where all of our cattle will go to. So yeah, that strike did hurt us quite a bit because we had like 80 head that were going to go like the week after they striked, and then we shipped some off to a couple smaller abattoirs and whatnot. But yeah, we pretty much just waited it out for the bulk of them until they got back up and running, because it's kind of the downfall of only having one major player in the game out here. So
did you change? Yeah. This is for people who don't have cattle or ruminants. You can't just change their diet like overnight, right? You have to adjust and let the rumen adjust with it. So how did you manage through, because obviously they're still going to be gaining, but if they're at the weight you want them at, you don't want them to gain too much, but you also don't want to upset the rumen. So how did you manage through all of that?
Yeah, we just, like you say, you can't do too much changing, so we just kept feeding them, and they got a bit bigger. When we sent them out, there was one on the sheet was 1,700 pounds.
Oh my!
Yeah, I've never had one that big before, but yeah, there's not a whole lot you can do about it. But and you don't want them to start going backwards.
Exactly. Yeah.
And yeah. So I don't know if that was the right thing to do or what, but anyway, that's what we did.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it's, I don't know, to people who don't have livestock, it's not something they really think of, right? It's like, oh, well, just, scale them back a bit so they're not getting as much. Well, that's like a rumen doesn't adjust that fast. You'll hurt them. You'll end up with issues.
Might not be a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now that, that was, I'm going to assume, a very stressful time. My question of this week, especially as we get into the holiday season, that can be stressful, is what are ways you try to manage stress in a healthy way? I know that we probably all have guilty ways of unhealthy stress busters, but what are some of your healthy stress busters? How do you manage it?
Just try to get your mind off of the farm if you can, and I guess I'm lucky that I live in an area that a lot of my friends and stuff, they don't farm and they're into sports and all that kind of stuff, so you can go over to their place and have a barbecue and hang out and kind of get away from it for a bit, and that seems to work good for me, but that's...
I'm writing this down. Non-farm friends. So that's a thing, is what you're saying.
Yeah, when you live close to Toronto, it is.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Do they think? You know what? That's a great point. Like, do they ask you what you do and it just goes in one ear and out the other? Or do they have really great questions?
Oh yeah, they're pretty good about it, and they're very interested in everything that goes on here because it's a lot different than a lot of people's day to day around here. So it's kind of nice. I try to advocate to them and stuff, so teach them about things and why we do different this and that, and yeah, it's nice. Yeah.
What do you think? So the other way though. So when you're there, you know, you can sort of turn off the agriculture brain. What is it about, you know, someone who lives a very urban life? What is one of your biggest questions for them? Like how they manage that commute? Because to me, my brain just does not want to compute such a thing. But what are some of your questions for them of how they live?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. How do you drive to work every day and deal with it? But they have their own ways to deal with stuff. And my one friend's working night shift right now, so he's kind of out of it. And another buddy of mine's pretty lucky. He's an electrician, and he does do a lot of electrical work on farms around the area. So, yeah, it's good for him, too. But,
Now, for where your farm is, I'm going to imagine that you do deal with, you know, a lot of that rural-urban mashup where it can get kind of tedious, kind of stressful. Are you in an area that's dealing with, you know, a lot of development and it's getting worse, or how do you manage that?
Oh yeah, definitely a lot of development, and we were combining corn. Like a couple of weeks ago, we finished combining corn, and to get to that last field was right along the 400 highway, which is a major highway by us, and typical. Just happened that there was an accident on the highway, and then the back roads were backed up, and I'm trying to drive the combine down the road to get to this last place, and it took about 40 minutes just to get the combine moved about 5 miles down the road. So that was quite stressful, and I'd never, but anyway, we got through it and got finished. So, but it sure would be nice to be in Saskatchewan some days where there's no traffic, I think.
Yes. And no trees to hit. It's great. Wide open spaces. That's for sure. Okay. It does sound like an adventure. And let's hope for several months you don't have to have any of those. So thanks so much for joining me on the Farmer Rapid Fire there, Luke. I do appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
All right. Now, before anybody comes at me, don't worry. I know that Saskatchewan has trees. Okay. They're beautiful. There's like at least 5. It's fine. All right. Just kidding. Okay. Let's head to a break here on the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. And I'll be back with more right after this.
Lima Grain Cereal Seed brings you best-in-class performance for winter and spring wheat, including 12 national wheat yield contest winners in 2024. With the most extensive coaxium portfolio and over 15 top-performing varieties, Lima Grain delivers superior genetics to control grassy weeds when you need it, fall or spring. Boost your yield potential today. Visit limagraincerealseeds.com or call your LCS Regional Commercial Manager for more info.
What's next doesn't happen by accident and doesn't happen by chance.
What's next happens when experience meets expertise, when data meets dollars, and when steel meets earth.
What's next happens when the promising work of Pioneer's state-of-the-art research centers meets the unsparing challenges of more than 17,000 on-farm trials.
Our ultimate goal is to bring the next seed breakthrough to your field.
Because Pioneer isn't just our name.
It's our mission. Pioneer.
What's next
happens here.
I'm Lyndsey Smith from RealAgriculture.com. Join me Monday nights for The Agronomist, a 1-hour live and interactive show broadcast across YouTube, Facebook, and X. Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, I host expert agronomists from all over the country to give you answers to some of the toughest agronomic questions. Join us live or catch the replay Tuesday morning. That's The Agronomist with me, Lyndsey Smith, Monday nights live at 8 p.m. Eastern. Joining me now on the line out of Manitoba, it's Ron Krahn. How are you, Ron?
Yes, very good.
How cold is it where you are today?
Quite cold, minus 30-ish, I think, something like that. So
Okay.
I didn't even look that carefully.
Yeah, so that's cold enough, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Now, we'll back up a little before we talk about what's going on this week. But how did the season wrap up for you there?
Yeah, I think it went well. We had a nice long fall, so got lots of work done out in the fields. Our late season crops like corn and sunflowers came off before there was snow on the ground. So yeah, no, it was good. It was an okay crop, nothing spectacular, but it wasn't really bad either. So.
Yeah. Sunflowers. What kind of sunflowers do you grow?
Oil type sunflowers.
Okay. So where do oil type sunflowers go when you sell them?
Mostly to Winklers where we sell them, and then they get used. That buyer typically uses them for bird food. So a lot of them go out east, out your direction, and so mostly for bird food.
Yep. I'll look for the stamp of Krahn sunflower seeds. No? Okay. Okay, but actually getting them harvested and in the bin without snow on them is quite a feat for where you are, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, we've done them a couple times in the snow, but my goal always is to get them off before it's that cold. Mm-hmm. And most years it works out. So only one time have we done them in March. The rest of the time, usually before Remembrance Day, they're off the field.
Yeah. So not so bad. Now, are they so canola can heat, and that's scary? Sunflower oil-based sunflowers, I feel like that's also a concern. How do you manage that risk?
Yes. I think they're worse than canola. Someone told me once that sunflowers' only will in life is to heat. So, we're pretty active with running fans. We don't have a dryer, so we've just been drying in bin. Actually, this cold weather that we're having today and tomorrow is great because it helps with freeze drying. So, so we just manage them with aeration, and it's always worked out for us so far.
Mm-hmm. All right, keep the air moving. Good for you. Yes. Okay. Yep. Now we are, of course, we're middle of the month, pretty much, if you can believe it, which sort of blows my mind. Yep. Coming up quick, anyway. And my question of the week, because this may play into how the next few weeks go, is how you manage stress, but the healthy ways you manage stress. Because I think we could probably all think of some what we know maybe aren't the best ways to manage stress. So I'm trying to get a better feel for what are the healthy ways you manage stress. And that's, of course, outside the holiday season, but that has stresses of its own. But what does that look like on your farm?
I've been really intentional the last couple of years, and it's difficult in the growing season. But even in the growing season, and very certainly now in the wintertime, in the winter, my goal is not to work in the evenings after supper. Occasionally I have to bring my laptop home, but very intentional about quitting at 5:30, making sure I'm home before supper so I can help Anita. Hopefully, it doesn't always work, but hopefully, help out around the house a little bit, getting supper ready. I go home for lunch, and I often have a nap, read a book or whatever. Now during season, there's still lots of work to do, but it's not as urgent as it is during the growing season. So, just being very intentional about not working Saturdays and Sundays. We always take Sundays off, but running a pretty more relaxed schedule. We have lots of people around, so I don't end up being on a truck very often hauling grain. I think all of us are able to keep a pretty reasonable schedule. For me, that makes a big difference.
Huge. Yep.
And even during the growing season, I don't know, even if it's 5 minutes, stop for lunch rather than just grabbing a sandwich and running and back into the sprayer or whatever. Sit down for 5 or 10 minutes, eat my lunch. It's amazing how just that little break, not being on my phone while I'm eating, just kind of gives that little bit of a break. And for me, that's made a difference.
Mm-hmm. Well, someone once said to me, change is as good as a rest. And so sometimes, right, just changing your scenery, changing what you're doing, and being maybe a bit more intentional about it. Plus, in the winter, there's sportsing on in the evenings that everybody can watch. So you've got priorities. These are important things.
Yeah. We try.
Now it is of course, as you mentioned, incredibly cold. Winter is, for a lot of Western Canadian farmers, is shipping season, moving grain for sure. How has that looked on your farm so far? Are you caught up? Do you have lots to do? What is the plan? What does that look like over the next couple months for your farm?
I think we're right on track. We have a lot moving in December now, so we actually didn't send out our truck today. Just too cold. We find after about minus 25, minus 30, nothing goes well. And our trips now in December are all to the other end of the province. And so, just when your truck's 3 hours away and if something goes wrong, it's just not as easy to troubleshoot as when we're hauling locally. So all of our December loads ended up being like an hour and a half to 3 hours away. So, we're on track. I ended up booking a local trucker to help us out next week for a couple loads, just to make certain that everything that bought us a day or two of breathing room just in case something went wrong. And because we had some deadlines that things needed to be moved before Christmas. So grain movement's been really good, and it's nice and cool now. We can cool down any grain that's still a little bit warm from in the fall time. So things are progressing well.
For a lot of our listeners, two things. When he says minus 25, that's Celsius. So minus 30 is approaching that minus 40 where Fahrenheit and Celsius meet, but it's darn cold. Let's put it that way. And the other part that may surprise some people is just how far you have to go to haul. But that's not the furthest I've heard. Like, having options within an hour and a half is pretty good.
Yeah, we're really fortunate. We actually have, I think it's 10 elevators within 30 miles or 50 kilometers of our farm. I think that's about 5 different line companies. We grow because we grow 6 crops. We have our fair share of special crops, and special crops always have special problems. And one of them is usually you've got to move them further. So our peas are going 3.5 hours away. Our sunflowers are going 3 hours away. So, and most of our canola now is going to crushers that are 3+ hours away. So it just means more time in a truck. And, if they're paying more, then it makes sense to haul further.
Mm-hmm. It is one of the confounding factors of diversifying our crop rotation. They all have to sometimes go in opposite directions, which is what essentially happens.
Yes. Yeah, for us, we're lucky. Most everything heads east in Manitoba. And so typically there's a rail advantage if you're going east. The one oddity there would be corn. There seems to, with the Synovus or the Husky ethanol plant at Minnedosa, which isn't far away, there seems to be a freight spread where corn is actually worth more on the west side of the province than the east. And so actually a bunch of our corn goes to Belle Plaine, Saskatchewan. Okay. So that gets hired out. It's just far enough away. But most products go east, but corn seems to flows west fairly often.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. All right, Ron, I know there's a rumor there may be a holiday concert in your future, so I'll let you go. But thank you so much for joining me on the Farmer Rapid Fire. I appreciate it.
Good. Thanks, Lyndsey.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here for the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada, and I'll be back with more right after this.
Do you want to take your crop yield to the next level? Many factors contribute to achieving a successful harvest, but the right fertility plan is key. BioK is the best potassium source in agriculture today and a critical component for both plant and soil health. It doesn't end with starter. With every pass across the field, you can spoon feed your crop. To learn more, contact a sales representative with Nature's in the U.S. and Alpine in Canada.
There's a reason we call it the Corn School. Videos on everything from planter setup to weed control, field trial results, and the latest yield strategies. The Corn School on RealAgriculture.com has the information and advice you need to help you succeed. Brought to you by Pride Seeds and BASF. Corn School episodes are available at cornschool.com, from RealAgriculture.com, or as a podcast in your favorite podcast app. Check out the latest Corn School episode today.
And we are back with a Farmer Rapid Fire brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada, right here on RealAg Radio, Rural Radio Channel 147, Sirius XM. We bounce now to beautiful Fairlight, Saskatchewan, which is also freezing cold. We're chatting with Kristjan Hebert. How are you, Kristjan?
Oh, really good. You?
Doing well. It's, it is that time of year where no one answers my emails anymore. They say they're in Christmas mode. So...
Yeah. Whether it's still a harvest hangover or Christmas mode or just done with making decisions for the year.
Yeah.
They're probably all true.
Yeah. We at RealAg, we work right to the holidays. Then we take that week of like Christmas to New Year's off. We kind of close up shop for that. So, we sometimes get a little frustrated when everybody seems to say that's a January problem, not a December problem. So there's that. Anyway, what's keeping you busy there on the farm this week?
Oh, I forget what it is. I think it's about 2,000 Super B loads of grain we have to haul every year. So if you take off, 3 weeks for seeding and 4 or 5 weeks for harvest and divide it by the rest, I think it's 20-ish loads, every week, or 15 to 20 loads every week between that and fertilizer. So we got trucks running pretty much all the time that the roads allow us, 2-3 guys in the shop. Our year ends are all December 31st. So the office crew's kind of making sure we got everything in order for that. And then, the majority of our staff has an addiction to minor hockey. So any spare time is spent chasing around rinks and testing burgers. And
the hot cocoa. I'm telling you.
Yep.
A rink burger and lava hot cocoa is kind of perfect food right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's true. Now, at this point, Kristjan, I sort of feel like with that many trucks on the road and that much grain to haul, maybe like you should just convince the railroads to just have a stop at your farm.
Oh, how about they just don't have a stoppage, and that would make my farm easier?
That would also help. Yeah, which we did. Apparently, we did manage. So we got word this week that CN and the Unifor union actually came to an agreement without a strike. I thought that was notable. They actually made an agreement without labor action. I didn't know that was possible.
I think we all quit counting over the last 3 years. I think it's like up to 70 stoppages between railroads, ports, and everything else that affects the supply and logistics, line that we've all just kind of quit paying attention. And it's pretty horrible when you're trying to convince the world that you're a reliable trading partner, and yet hearing that there's going to be a stoppage in our Canadian supply chain has just become normal.
Yeah, I know. Like we almost are a little too used to it, and it shouldn't be that way. Yeah. We should not be okay with this.
Completely agree. I mean, you can't tell that you want to be a global superpower in the world of agriculture, food production, and food security, and then not be able to get it to anybody.
That's right. Yeah, it's kind of important. It's kind of a key piece of that. Now for those, I love this term, eagle-eyed listeners, because it doesn't really work. But for those listening who may, of course, also recognize your voice, of course, you do lots of different things. But we've got the Truth About Ag podcast that is shared on the Real Agriculture Network as well. Sometimes we take clips of it for this show too. We just had episode 18 went out this week talking about resilience. Tell us a bit about that episode. What people can find out if they go listen to the Truth About Ag podcast.
Yeah, I think originally we thought it was going to be mainly about agriculture, and what we've seen is that it's more trended to just curiosity, wanting to learn, and interesting people, and then what they've done and what they've learned on their path to what we would deem in general success. And then there's obviously the odd one was just Evan and I, where we get into the weeds of some of the more operational stuff when we get questions from listeners. But I think this week there's going to be some talk on how you transition to people being one of your main assets, whether that be your network, on how you gather information and learn things and move forward, and your team on how you execute on what you say you're going to do. And then also, I think we're all we're kind of all of the feeling that we could be in a 12 to 24 month period of a little tighter margins. And so what are you doing to look ahead and plan for that? And usually tough times bring opportunity. So you want to be more than ready.
Yeah. Yes, in looking forward, I think most would agree that certainly at least the next 12, maybe, you're right, 24, look a little tighter. We asked through our Real Agri studies, where farmers figured they would tighten up their belt. For your team, what does that look like? What does that planning look like as far as, you mentioned there are opportunities, yes, but how do you manage for the lower profit margin potential of the next year or two?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're starting to feel that it's going to be tight, hands down. But I mean, I also think that there's going to be an extreme amount of volatility, and volatility creates extreme tightness and extreme opportunity. So, I mean, you just look at the canola market in specific, it has $40 to $50 a ton variations. It seems like on a weekly or every 2 week basis now, and it can be $80 to $120 a ton every 3 months. So I think we just have to keep that mindset that we got 720 days to sell this crop that we're about to grow. Try to get inputs locked in, on the lower side or as low as possible. And, we're looking at things like utilizing fertilizer that's a lot more plant available and not building on years like this. On equipment, I would say we kind of cut back on discretionary spending, buy the stuff we need, not the stuff we want, and make sure that we're maximizing, the utilization of the stuff that we need. And once again, we go back to our people that let's make sure we do what we say we're going to do and do a really good job of it and take care of the little things. And we think there'll be opportunities to turn a profit out of that.
I like the idea of maybe it isn't the year to be building fertilizer or soil fertility rates. And for 1 year, 2 years, that's okay. So there's nothing wrong with that. Now that does bring in the second part to this, which is my question of the week, which is managing stress. So I have been asking all the farmers the positive ways they manage stress on the farm, or maybe it's getting off the farm. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I'm kind of a horrible person to answer stress questions. I mean, if you talk to my wife, she'd probably tell you that I don't really feel it and have to ask for help on how to deal with, say, even kids if they're feeling anxious, etc. Because I'm not sure. I have a hard time being empathetic to it because I don't actually really understand how it feels. But for me personally, I mean, probably the reason is building a great team so that you don't feel all the decisions land on yourself. And you're kind of winning every battle together. And then once again, I mean, really all I do is farm and hang out with my wife and kids. And that's usually at kids activities and family stuff. So kids sports and coaching hockey is kind of my break from life. I put my cell phone away. I don't answer it. And I really enjoy doing that. And I learn a lot from kids. I mean, they're not old enough. They haven't figured out how to lie and be vindictive like some adults can. They actually just tell you the truth. And it's pretty refreshing. So that would be what I would kind of tell everybody is you need to find the things that light you up inside and do those, and they're different for everybody.
Absolutely. But it also explains a lot, Kristjan, that you maybe can't empathize on that one because I'm not quite sure how you do all the things that you do. So that explains things. It doesn't keep you up at night. So it's good.
No, I sleep really well.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. And I will say hockey rinks have featured prominently in this question. So, this is perhaps the most Canadian answer we've all had for this one. And I like it.
I think the one thing too that we talk about more and more is farmers' fierce independence is what allows them to be successful. That's how they beat Mother Nature. That's how they deal with, tariff news and how they deal with droughts and too much rain, etc. But it's probably maybe limited how much they tell each other when times aren't real fun. Right. And I think sometimes we just need to remember that whether you're feeling stress or not feeling stress, in general, not just farmers, all small businesses are dealing with the same kind of problems, right? Whether that be cash flow or human resources or government policy. There's always somebody that you can just have a coffee at and shoot ideas around. And I think that's beneficial. It doesn't have to be, I think people get scared that it's therapy or do I need that? And I realize some people do, but a lot of times I just think you need to have somebody you can talk to that's feeling the same and find a way to either realize that someone's feeling the same as you or work through it and come up with a couple possible solutions together.
Yep, absolutely. No stress, just shooting the breeze and
Yep.
finding some common ground. I like it. All right, Kristjan, I'll let you get back to it. Get that grain hauled, and I'll see what I can do about a spur line up to your place.
That'd be great.
Yeah, okay, I'll work on it. Okay, thanks, Kristjan. Take care.
Thanks a lot.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and I'll be back with Derwyn Hammond out of Western Manitoba right after this.
This is your last call to save big on DeKalb canola. How big? Save up to $40 per bag big. On now until December 13th, save on the highest yielding DeKalb hybrid, DK401TL. Visit your local seed retailer or DeKalbRewards.ca today and get ahead of your 2025 to-do list with big savings on seed. We're going to be your #1 canola seed. Just watch us.
If you're serious about agriculture, RealAg's got you covered.
For over 10 years, we've listened to and shared what producers have to say about everything from policy to agronomy from coast to coast.
Keep up with the latest in Canadian agriculture at RealAgriculture.com through daily newsletters and check out our YouTube channel.
Thanks for joining us in the RealAg community as we continue to cover and serve North American agriculture.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com. I am Lyndsey Smith, and joining me now is Derwyn Hammond. He's the Western Manitoba rep for Pioneer Seeds Canada. How are you, Derwyn?
I'm very well today.
Well, I hear it's cold, though, so you must be inside only.
Yeah, I'm in my office doing this interview, so it's a nice day in here. But yeah, it's definitely winter. Winter took a long time coming, but once it got here, it's come with a vengeance. Yeah.
Yeah, as it should. Which is why we're inside, staying warm, making plans for 2025. But let's look back first. The growing season that was for 24, certainly a challenging one for many, surprisingly good and in some other ways. What can we take from this year in looking at our evaluations as far as new products, et cetera, that you've got? What do we do about taking that and looking forward with it? How do we best evaluate this year?
Well, that's been a big chunk of my job over the last month or so is that positioning. Some of the new products we introduced last year and some of the experimental products we're looking to bring forward into next year. And so I think that's the key, is putting this last 2024 information in context, looking at how it compares to previous years where we have previous year's results on those same products. This year for West Man, I can speak for Western Manitoba, right through to the beginning of July, we were much wetter than normal and much colder than normal. And so put a lot of stress on emerging crops and created ideal conditions. So disease was a big factor in canola performance in our area. And so what you saw was some of the new products with higher resistance to some of those key diseases like sclerotinia, like verticillium stripe, percolate to the top of the leaderboard on a lot of those trials in some areas. But in other areas, not far away, half-hour drive in some cases, much less stress from, 3 or 4 inches less precipitation makes life a lot easier for those plants. And some of those products that traditionally had performed well still stayed at the top of the leaderboard. So it's really about looking at the context of the trials that you're looking at. We can get away from that individual trial result by taking a broader look at over a wider geography. But, it's also good to have a look at the local geography's results as well.
Mm-hmm. I sort of take that, it could be two ways, right? Is that if you think about it in context and you're a farm or certain fields are often challenged by these diseases, that to me, really speaks volumes as to how good of a fit one of those products might be. The flip side, though, is it just shows you the importance of recognizing, in a good year where, let's say, disease isn't an issue, there's lots of really great productive options out there. But the unknown of that disease part is can really take a bite out of production. That's for sure.
Yeah, and so, definitely as I've been evaluating the results, it's just really reinforced for me what I've always felt, that the value of that diversity as a risk management tool, right? Having some diversity as we go to larger acre farms, logistics becomes a big driver, and there's lots of incentive to simplify, right? To go with one hybrid across more acres, to go with a standard fertility program across more acres, to reduce cost, and so maybe pare down our seeding rates. And so under those stressful conditions, we really saw that the well-established, higher plant densities tended to perform better this year. And so, I think it's both that diversity in terms of our cropping mix. So, with what commodity prices overall have done recently, but also lots of fairly large swings and difficulty to predict maybe where we're going to land in terms of the value of different crops looking ahead. Having that more diverse cropping mix in terms of your cropping sequence and your acres, it's got value in terms of managing that risk. It also helps you manage some of that pest pressure and some of the disease pressures that we saw come forward under the conditions that we had that were conducive to that, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's we know and farmers have been are well aware of, as they create these crop budgets for 2025 of, where you may, try to save some dollars, but productivity is going to be really that key driver of that profitability component, that it's really about managing that risk, but selecting the right products for the right acres, right? It's incredibly important to match those up. Now, for those who, of course, are curious about, let's say, evaluating a new hybrid or a new variety on their farm, are we better off to do, 3 or 4 different trials with something across our farm, or split a bigger field in half? Which one gives us a better sense of how that particular product performs?
Well, I think it's going to be really important to again, with that productivity piece. Lower overall prices means productivity drives your overall profitability on the farm to a greater extent in those conditions. And so evaluating new products to see if there's opportunity to improve, it's really important. But I find it, in terms of, you need to look at it, the data you generate on that local trial on your farm, you're hoping to use it to predict whether this is a good strategy moving forward into future years. And so whether it's split in a half section or doing a couple of strips, that's one point of comparison. And it tells you a lot about what happened under those conditions in that field in those set of growing conditions, but it's not necessarily going to have a lot of strength in predicting what might happen across all your acres.
All right, Derwyn, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much, of course, to Derwyn Hammond with Pioneer Seeds Canada for joining me here on the Farmer Rapid Fire. And thanks to each of you for following along. Thank you to Kristjan, to Mark, to Ron, and to Luke for joining me here for this show. And of course, to Pioneer Seeds Canada for making it all happen. I will be back tomorrow with the Issues panel. We'll talk to you then. Cheers, everybody.